A poor little girl falls in the street while running in the rain. But when the young billionaire lifts her up and looks at her, he whispers, "Oh my God, she's identical to my daughter who passed away." And he begins to cry non-stop. The rain was pouring down as if the sky had decided to unleash its entire weight upon the city. Elijah Marshall walked alone through the nearly empty streets, protected only by a black umbrella that seemed insignificant against the fury of the storm. The water pounded the pavement so hard it formed a low mist, making it difficult to see more than a few feet ahead. He didn't need to be out there. With his money, he could have been anywhere in the world, sheltered in one of his mansions, protected by drivers and assistants. But ever since the fire, Elijah preferred to walk alone, to feel the city, even on days like that. That's when he heard it. A small cry followed by a dull thud, almost drowned out by the rain. Turning quickly, he saw a little girl lying on the wet sidewalk about 60 feet away. "Are you all right?" Elijah ran toward her, holding his umbrella against the wind that threatened to rip it out of his hands. The girl, no more than 5 years old, was trying to get up, her knees and hands scraped by the rough concrete. Her light brown hair was soaked, plastered to her small-town round face. She wasn't crying. She merely bit her lower lip with determination. Her clothes were simple, a patched jacket and a pair of worn-out sneakers that looked like they'd been donated. "Let me help you," Elijah said, kneeling beside her and shielding her with his umbrella. It was at that moment she looked up. The world stopped. The sound of the rain, the strong wind, the distant headlights, all of it vanished in an instant. Elijah felt as if he'd been punched in the stomach, so hard it knocked every bit of air from his lungs. Those eyes, grayish-green with small brown flecks near the iris, the gentle curve of the chin, the freckles sprinkled across the nose like delicate constellations. Rosie. His Rosie. "Mister, are you okay?" The child's voice brought him back to reality. It couldn't be. Rosie was gone. The fire report, the remains. He himself had identified the few belongings found in the rubble. "I'm fine," he managed, his voice hoarse. "Are you hurt?" "Just a little. But I can't cry. My mom says I'm a strong girl." Elijah helped her to her feet, his hands trembling. Every movement, every expression she made was like a ghost from his memory. The way she tilted her head slightly to the side when she spoke, how she rubbed her nose when she was nervous. "What's your name?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "Lily," she replied, adjusting her small, soaked jacket. "And you?" "Elijah," he answered automatically. "Where's your mum, Lily?" "She's still working. She cleans big houses on the other side of town. She won't be back till late tonight." "Do you live nearby by yourself?" Elijah asked, worried. "Yes, I live with my mom, Clara, in those little houses down there." Lily pointed to the end of the street. "I went out to buy bread for dinner because we ran out." She showed a small plastic bag, now drenched. Elijah's heart tightened. Such a little child, alone in the rain just to get food. "Let me walk you home." "It's too dark and rainy for a girl to be out here alone." Lily seemed to think this over for a moment, narrowing her eyes as though deciding whether she could trust him. "Okay. My mom always says not to talk to strangers, but you helped me, so you're not totally a stranger, right? And you have nice clothes, like the people my mum cleans for." An involuntary smile tugged at Elijah's lips. The child's simple, direct logic was so reminiscent of Rosie it hurt. They started walking along the slippery sidewalk, Elijah keeping the umbrella over the girl. With each step, every glance, every exchanged word, the sense of unreality grew. Questions piled up in his mind. How was this possible? Who was this girl? Who was Clara? "It's over there." Lily pointed to a row of small wooden houses beside a vacant lot. The structures looked makeshift, almost like shacks arranged in some semblance of order. An attempt at a small community amid the poverty. "I live in the third one." The structure was simple. Plywood walls, a metal roof, a single small window at the front. The rain pounded on the tin roof with a noise that must make it impossible to sleep on nights like that. In the tiny front yard, there was an improvised clothesline with some garments now soaked by the downpour. "It's small, but it's our home," Lily said with a simple pride that made Elijah feel something strange in his chest. "Does your mom know you went out alone?" "Sort of," Lily shrugged. "Sometimes I have to help out. Mom works a lot to pay rent and my school." Elijah looked at the simple house, feeling an inexplicable urgency not to let the girl go. To find out more. To be sure. "Lily, how old are you?" 5.5, she answered proudly, holding out her hand and then bending one finger halfway. 5.5. Rosie would be 8 now. It made no sense. And yet... "Thanks for the umbrella, Mr. Elijah." Lily grinned, a smile he knew so well it made his heart ache. "I've got to go in now. Mrs. Johnson next door is probably wondering where I am." "Sure," he said, still dazed. "Be careful with those scraped knees." She waved and ran to the little house, unlocking the door with a key she pulled from her jacket pocket. Elijah stood in the rain, watching the simple door she had disappeared behind. Water now ran down his face, his hair, his clothes, but he barely felt it. Images of the fire filled his mind, merging with Lily's face, identifying the remains, the funeral without a body, the years of mourning and isolation, and now this simple little girl with the face of his daughter. Elijah took a deep breath and looked at the house's small window, where a faint light had just turned on. He decided he wouldn't leave. Not yet. He had to know more about Lily and Clara. He had to understand if he was going crazy, or if, by some miracle, part of his destroyed world still existed. He crossed the street and waited under the awning of an abandoned bus stop, watching the house. The rain kept falling, but Elijah no longer cared about being wet. For the first time in 3 years, he felt something besides pain. A spark of something dangerous, powerful, and fragile. Hope. The next morning, Elijah was back. He parked his inconspicuous car a few blocks away and walked to the bus stop with a view of the small wooden house. He wore simpler clothes today, jeans, a blue shirt, and a dark jacket he never used in business meetings. He wanted to draw less attention. The rain had stopped, but the sky was still grey. Elijah checked his watch. 6:40 a.m. Sleep had not come the night before. How could it? His mind was filled with questions, theories, and a hope so painful it almost suffocated him. At 6:53, the door of the third house opened. A woman stepped out, holding Lily's hand. Clara, he presumed. She was young, maybe around 30, thin, with dark hair pulled back in a simple bun. Even from a distance, Elijah could see the exhaustion in her slumped shoulders. She wore what looked like a grey cleaning uniform and carried a heavy bag. Lily, meanwhile, wore a simple dress and a colourful school backpack, probably the only new item she had. They walked to the bus stop on the other side of the street, about 300 feet away from where Elijah stood. "Behave at school today," he heard Clara say as he approached unnoticed. "Mrs. Johnson will pick you up." "Okay, Mum, you're not working late again, right?" "I'll try to come back earlier," Clara replied, kissing the top of the girl's head. The bus arrived, and after one more hug, Lily got on. Clara stood watching until the vehicle disappeared around the corner. Only then did her shoulders slump a bit more, as if now she could reveal how tired she truly was. Elijah took a deep breath and stepped closer. "Good morning," he said, trying to sound casual. "Sorry to bother you. You're Lily's mum, right?" Clara turned with a start, immediately on guard. "Who are you?" "How do you know my daughter?" Her voice was firm despite her fatigue, her eyes alert. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. My name is Elijah. Yesterday, I helped Lily when she fell in the rain, near the bakery." Clara's face relaxed slightly, though her wariness remained. "Oh, that was you. She told me a kind man helped her." Clara studied his face for a moment. "Thank you for that. But why are you here now?" Elijah had rehearsed this part. "Actually, I'm new to this neighborhood. I'm looking for someone to help clean my place once a week. Lily mentioned you work doing that. Clara blinked in surprise. You don't look like you're from around here. I just moved here. I'm on Maple Street, 3 blocks away. One of the simpler streets in the area, yet still much better than this place. It was a believable lie, Elijah thought. Clara checked her cheap watch. I need to catch my bus in 5 minutes or I'll be late for work. I can drive you, Elijah offered, gesturing in the direction of where he'd parked. We can talk on the way. Clara hesitated, sizing him up. Elijah knew what she saw, a man too well dressed, even in simple clothes, likely well-intentioned, but still a stranger. No, thanks. I'd rather take the bus. She started walking toward the stop. But if you really want to hire a cleaning lady, we can talk another day. I'll give you my number. She pulled a small notepad from her bag and wrote down a number. How much do you usually pay per hour? Elijah asked, taking the slip of paper. $15, Clara replied. Then, blushing slightly, she added, but I can do it for 13 if it's a regular job. Elijah nodded, feeling a lump in his throat. $13 an hour. He spent more than that on a single coffee at the tower where his office was located. How about starting tomorrow? Let's say 9 in the morning. I can come pick you up. The bus was approaching the stop. Clara looked torn. All right, I only have a job in the afternoon tomorrow. She was already moving. But just meet me here, no need to drive me. Clara stepped onto the bus without looking back, and Elijah stood there watching the vehicle pull away. She was cautious and protective, qualities he admired, qualities of a good mother. But was she Lily's biological mother? Over the next 3 days, Elijah established a routine. Clara came to clean his place, a small apartment he had quickly rented on Maple Street. Modest by his standards, but clearly luxurious to Clara, who worked in silence, efficiently. Do you live alone? She asked on the second day, while cleaning the windows. Yes, Elijah answered, pretending to be busy on his laptop at the kitchen table. I'm an accountant. Mostly work from home. Another lie. He owned one of the largest tech companies in the country, but had been on an indefinite leave since Rosie's death. His executives managed everything while he drifted in his own grief. Lily liked you, Clara commented casually. She said you have sad eyes. The observation caught him off guard. Kids see things adults don't notice. Clara nodded. Lily's always been that way, special, observant. She paused. Ever since she was a baby. It was the first time Clara had mentioned Lily's past. Elijah tried to keep his voice casual. Did you have her very young? Clara stopped cleaning and looked out the window. For a moment, Elijah thought she wouldn't answer. I didn't have her, she finally said, still facing away from him. I found her. Elijah's heart sped up. What do you mean? Clara turned around, her eyes evaluating him as though deciding how much she could trust him. I was working as a janitor at a church 5 years ago. One winter morning, I found a baby at the back door. No one ever came to claim her. So you adopted her? Elijah kept his voice neutral, despite the storm in his chest. Not officially, Clara admitted, lowering her voice. I don't have papers. I'm an immigrant. I told the police about the abandoned baby, but I don't know, something told me to protect her. She looked at Elijah intently. I've never told anyone about this. Elijah nodded, feeling the weight of the confidence she was placing in him. Your secret's safe with me. The next day, Elijah showed up with a bag of groceries. I bought too much for just one person, he explained. Clara hesitated but accepted. The following day, it was a small space heater. Winter's coming, and I heard yours broke. He had overheard Lily mention that while talking to her mom at the front door, one of the times he watched them discreetly. Clara accepted his help with growing discomfort, but also with silent gratitude. Elijah could see she was proud yet too practical to refuse help that benefited Lily. When, on the 5th day, Elijah asked if he could visit their home to fix a leaking faucet, Lily had mentioned. Clara finally confronted the situation. Why are you doing this? She asked directly. People like you don't help people like us without reason. Elijah felt the weight of all his lies, of his real identity, of his suspicions, but he couldn't reveal anything yet. "Maybe I'm just trying to be a better person," he answered, surprised at the sincerity in his own voice. "And maybe you two remind me there's goodness in the world, even when it seems impossible to find." Clara studied him for a long moment, as though she could see right through him. Finally, she nodded. "That faucet's been leaking for months. It'd be good to have it fixed." Driving home that night, Elijah knew he was getting closer to what he needed to discover. Clara had found an abandoned baby around the same time as the fire, a baby who grew into Lily, with Rosie's face. The coincidence was too big to ignore, but how and why? And the questions consumed him, alongside a growing certainty that his world was about to be turned upside down yet again. Elijah sat alone in his real apartment, a spacious penthouse in the city center, overlooking the park. The place he actually lived, not the small unit he'd rented to maintain his cover with Clara. On the coffee table, a thick folder of documents, some yellowed with age, lay open. Next to it, a half-finished glass of whiskey reflected the dim lamplight. It was 3 in the morning, but sleep was impossible. The memories, those he had tried to bury for 3 years, were flooding back with new force. With a sigh, he picked up a photo from the top of the stack. In it, a girl with grayish-green eyes smiled, hugging a brown stuffed dog. Rosie is at 5 years old, 6 months before the fire. "How did I not see it sooner?" he whispered to himself. The fire had happened on a winter night. Elijah had been on a business trip in Japan, closing a deal that would double his company's value. Caroline, his wife, had called earlier that day. They had been arguing, another fight about how he put work above the family. "Rosie asked again when you're coming back," Caroline said over the phone, her voice weary. "She's been sleeping every night with that silly stuffed dog you gave her." "Tell her I'll be home in 2 days," he replied, signing papers as he spoke. "And that I'll bring her a gift from Japan." "Gifts don't replace presents, Elijah." The call ended in palpable tension. That was the last time he spoke to her. The phone call that changed everything came at 4:17 a.m., Japan time, his personal assistant, voice trembling, telling him about the fire that consumed the east wing of his mansion, where the bedrooms were located. The gas line had exploded, apparently. A terrible accident. Elijah closed his eyes, feeling the same tightness in his chest he'd felt then. The flight home was the longest of his life. 16 hours on a private jet, imagining his house in flames, imagining. When he arrived, the mansion was still smoking. Firefighters, police, forensic investigators. Caroline's body had been found in the hallway. She'd tried to escape, but the smoke overwhelmed her. It was identified by her jewelry and wedding ring. But Rosie, the body found in her bedroom, was unrecognizable, severely burned, too small for conclusive DNA testing at the time. The investigators said the identification was made by the location it was found, the remains of her favorite pajamas, the unmistakable signs that it was her room. Elijah picked up another document from the folder, the coroner's report. The technical, clinical words trying to describe what was left of his little girl. It made him nauseous now, as it had then. "I accepted it too quickly," he whispered, running a hand over his tired face. After the funeral, closed coffins, white flowers everywhere, Elijah sank into a grief so profound it bordered on self-destruction. He sold the mansion, walked away from the company, cut himself off from the world. He couldn't even visit the graves. The pain was too great. He stood and walked to the window, gazing at the city lights. For 3 years, he'd lived like a ghost. Without Caroline, without Rosie, without a purpose, merely existing day after day, sustained by the fortune he had built and that now meant nothing, until he saw Lily fall on that wet sidewalk. He returned to the coffee table and picked up his tablet. On it was a photo of Lily he had discreetly taken while fixing the leaking faucet at her house. The girl was drawing at the small kitchen table, focused, her tongue sticking out in concentration, just like Rosie used to do. He placed the photo beside the one of Rosie. The eyes, the nose and the shape of the face. The resemblance was striking. Anyone would say they were the same child, but they couldn't be. Rosie would be 8 now, Lily was 5.5. The ages didn't match, unless... Elijah picked up the fire investigation report. He reread, for the 100th time since he'd found Lily, the details of the inquiry. Likely cause, a gas line leak. Initial explosion in the east wing. Victims identified on site. Identified. On site. Suddenly, a disturbing idea formed in his mind. What if that body wasn't Rosie's? What if, for some inexplicable reason, his daughter had been taken out of the house before the fire? He grabbed his phone and checked the time, 3:47 a.m. It didn't matter. He dialed a number he hadn't used in years. "Marcus, it's Elijah Marshall. I know it's late, but I need your services. It's urgent." Marcus Hampton was a former cop who had worked as Elijah's head of security for years before the fire. A discreet, efficient man and most of all loyal. "Mr. Marshall, it's been a while," came the gruff voice after several rings. "What happened? I need you to investigate something for me, discreetly, about the fire." "I thought that matter was settled, sir." "So did I, Marcus, but now I'm not so sure." After hanging up, Elijah returned to the documents. There was one detail he had never fully explained. That night, the mansion's security system had been offline for almost an hour before the fire started. Investigators attributed it to an electrical fault tied to the same problem that caused the gas leak. But what if it wasn't a coincidence? He picked up another photo of Rosie, where she smiled, missing a few baby teeth. Lily had the same smile, the same eyes, the same tilt of the head when something intrigued her. The DNA report had never been completely conclusive. The remains were consistent with a child of Rosie's age and size, found in her room, but there hadn't been absolute proof of identity. Elijah felt a sudden dizziness. If it wasn't Rosie in that room, then who was it? And if his daughter was alive, why would someone take her? Why? He looked again at Lily's photo. Clara said she found her abandoned at a church door. When exactly? 5 years ago, she had said, but exactly how long ago, before or after the fire? The fire had occurred on January 22nd, 3 years ago. If Clara found Lily only a few days after, he poured more whiskey with a shaky hand. The possibilities terrified him, yet also filled him with a painful hope. If Lily were Rosie, it meant someone had orchestrated everything. The fire, the disappearance of his daughter, Caroline's death. It meant murder. It meant that for 3 years he had grieved for someone who was still alive. It meant he might have a second chance. What if Rosie is alive? He whispered into the empty room, the question echoing in his heart like a scream. For the first time in years, Elijah cried openly, tears of confusion, fear, and a hope so fragile it hurt. He collapsed onto the couch, physically and emotionally spent. The lingering doubt would keep him awake that night, and many nights to come, but it also filled him with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt since losing everything. If there was even the slightest chance Lily was Rosie, he would find out the truth. No matter how long it took, how much it cost, or who he had to face, because for the first time in 3 years, Elijah had something to fight for. Sunday dawned clear, a rare day of spring without clouds. Elijah drove to the row of simple houses with a toolbox on the passenger seat and a bag of groceries in the back. He had promised to fix not just the kitchen faucet, but also a window that wouldn't close properly. As he parked, he saw Lily playing in the small patch of bare yard in front of the houses. She was building something with stones and twigs, completely absorbed. Noticing his arrival, she jumped up. "Elijah, you came to fix our house." Her smile was wide, filled with a trust that hadn't been there the first time they met. "I did," he replied, feeling that familiar tightness in his chest. "Is your mum home?" "She's making coffee. Come on." Lily grabbed his hand naturally, pulling him toward the house. That small gesture, that warm little hand in his, sent a wave of emotion through Elijah that he could barely contain. Clara was in the kitchen, her hair tied in a colorful scarf, brewing coffee in an old coffee maker. The aroma filled the small, clean space. Despite the evident poverty, there was care in every corner. Patchwork curtains that matched and wildflowers in a glass cup. Lily's drawings held up on the fridge by magnets. "Good morning," she said, turning with a tired smile. "Coffee?" "I'd love some," Elijah answered, putting the toolbox down. "I brought some groceries for lunch as well," he mentioned, gesturing to the bag. Clara frowned. "You didn't have to." "I know, but I wanted to." While Elijah worked on the faucet, Lily sat on the kitchen floor, watching his every move. She asked constant questions. "Why is that wrench different? How do you know which part is broken? Do you fix things in your accounting job?" Which he answered patiently. After finishing the faucet, the three of them had lunch together at the small kitchen table. It was the first time they had shared a meal, and initially there was an uncomfortable silence. "Lily told me you brought her a game yesterday," Clara remarked, breaking the silence. Elijah nodded. "A puzzle. I hope that's all right." "It has 500 pieces, Mom. It's a castle," Lily exclaimed. Clara smiled at her daughter. "I don't mind. We're just not used to getting gifts." "Mr. Accountant is nice," Lily stated, with a child's frank simplicity. "He has sad eyes, like that dog we saw at the shelter, remember, Mum?" "Lily," Clara gently admonished. "It's okay," Elijah laughed, surprising himself. "She's right. My eyes do get sad sometimes." After lunch, while Lily played in her small bedroom, Clara and Elijah sat on the makeshift porch, just 2 wooden steps and a worn chair. She offered him another cup of coffee, which he accepted. "You never talk about your life," Clara observed, looking out at the quiet street. Elijah hesitated. "There's not much to tell." "Everyone has a story," she persisted gently. "You've heard mine, finding Lily, my struggle to raise her, but you, too. You're a mystery." The afternoon sun highlighted lines of worry around Clara's eyes that didn't match her age. There was a resilience in her that Elijah deeply admired. "I lost my family," he finally said, the words coming painfully. 3 years ago." Clara said nothing, just waited for him to continue. "My wife and my daughter. An accident. After that, I withdrew from everything and everyone." "I'm sorry," Clara murmured, and there was genuine understanding in her voice. "The pain doesn't go away, does it?" "No, it just changes shape." They sat in silence for a moment, the kind of silence that exists only between people who understand loss. "When I found Lily," Clara said quietly, "I was at my worst. I had come to this country with promises of a good job that turned out to be lies. I was alone, undocumented, cleaning a church for almost nothing, sleeping in the storage room." She sipped her coffee. "Then, on a freezing morning, I heard a faint cry. There was a baby, wrapped in blankets, left at the back door." Elijah listened intently, his heart pounding. "I should have called the police immediately, but when I held her..." Clara smiled at the memory. "Something changed in me. For the first time since arriving in this country, I felt a sense of purpose." "Do you remember the exact date?" Elijah asked, trying to keep his voice casual. Clara frowned, thinking, "Late January 5 years ago. It was so cold. It was snowing. Late January. Days after the fire." Elijah took a deep breath, struggling to control his emotions. "You saved her," he said. Clara shook her head. "No, she saved me." At that moment, Lily dashed out of the house, holding up a drawing. "Look what I made." It was a simple sketch in colored pencil, 3 stick figures. One small with a dress, one taller with long hair, and a tall figure with what appeared to be a toolbox. "It's you, me, and Mr. Accountant," Lily explained, pointing to each figure. Elijah carefully held the drawing as though it were precious. "Can I keep it?" Yes, I made it for you. In the following weeks, Elijah became a frequent presence at Clara and Lily's house. He fixed things, brought children's books, and sometimes just sat on the porch talking with Clara while Lily played. One night, while helping the girl with her homework, Elijah noticed that she was watching him curiously. "What is it?" he asked, smiling. "Are you sad because you don't have a family?" The question caught him off guard. Clara, who was ironing clothes nearby, stopped what she was doing. "I used to have a family," he answered honestly, "and I miss them every single day." "You can stay with us," Lily said with simple directness. "We can be your family now." Elijah's eyes filled with tears he couldn't hold back. That would be very special. That night, as he said goodbye, Clara walked him to the door. "I'm sorry about what Lily said. Kids don't understand." "Don't worry," Elijah gently interrupted. "It was the nicest thing anyone has said to me in years." Clara studied his face for a moment, then in an unexpected gesture, lightly touched his arm. "You've been good to us, Elijah." "Thank you." Driving home, Elijah thought about that day's conversations, about Clara's story, about Lily's drawing, about the feeling of her little hand in his, the doubts and questions about the fire, about Lily's true identity, still consumed him. Marcus was still investigating discreetly, but something inside Elijah was changing. These visits, these simple talks of loss and hope, were slowly filling the void Elijah believed to be permanent. The connection he felt with Clara and Lily went beyond the possibility that Lily was his lost daughter. For the first time in 3 years, Elijah allowed himself to think about the future. A future that in some inexplicable way included a strong woman and her special daughter, living in a modest home in the poor side of town. And, as strange as it seemed, that thought made him smile. The rain had returned, falling heavily over the city. Elijah watched the droplets run down the cafe's window as he waited. The place was unassuming, in a remote neighborhood where no one would recognize him. He checked his watch for the 3rd time in 5 minutes. Marcus was late. When the door finally opened, Elijah instantly recognized the solid figure of the ex-cop. Marcus Hampton had aged in the 3 years since they last met, hair more gray, deeper lines on his face, but he still had that alert look that made him so valuable as head of security. "Mr. Marshall," Marcus said as he sat, his voice low and raspy. "Thanks for coming, Marcus. And please, it's just Elijah now." The older man nodded, ordering a coffee from the waitress before turning his full attention to his former employer. "You seem better than the last time we saw each other," he observed. Elijah tried to smile. "The last time was at the funeral." "Exactly." Silence weighed between them for a moment. Marcus had worked for Elijah for 8 years before the fire. He knew Carolyn, had seen Rosie grow up. After the tragedy, when Elijah dismissed his staff and withdrew from the world, Marcus respected his decision, staying away but always available. "You mentioned on the phone something about the fire," Marcus said, getting straight to the point. "I assumed that chapter was closed." Elijah leaned forward, lowering his voice. "I met a child, a 5.5-year-old girl named Lily." Calmly, he told Marcus about meeting Lily in the rain, about the uncanny resemblance, about Clara and the story of the abandoned baby. As he spoke, he watched his former security chief's face shift from skeptical to intrigued. "I understand your reaction," Marcus said finally. "Losing a daughter is devastating. It's natural to project." "I'm not projecting," Elijah interrupted, more sharply than intended. He took a deep breath. "Sorry, but that's not it. See for yourself." He slid an envelope across the table. Inside were photos of Lily he had taken discreetly, alongside old photos of Rosie. The similarity was undeniable. Marcus studied the images with a professional eye, his face revealing no emotion. "The ages don't match," he noted. "Your daughter would be 8 years old now." "I know, it doesn't make sense, but still." "What exactly do you want me to do, Elijah?" "Investigate. Find records about a baby abandoned at the church where Clara worked." See if anyone noticed anything strange in the days following the fire. Review the forensics reports. Anything that can explain this. Elijah pointed at the photos. Marcus sighed, running a hand through his gray hair. I have contacts. I can ask some discreet questions. But you need to understand, even if there's a connection, it might not be what you're hoping for. I just want the truth, Elijah replied. I need to know. Over the next 2 weeks, Elijah split his time between visiting Clara and Lily and holding discreet meetings with Marcus. The investigation progressed slowly, piece by piece. I found the police record, Marcus reported on a rainy afternoon, once again in that distant cafe. A woman named Clara Diaz did report a baby abandoned behind St. Matthew's Church on January 28, 3 years ago, 6 days after the fire. Elijah's heart pounded. What else? Standard procedure would be to place the child in social services, but Marcus consulted his notes. The social worker assigned never showed up. An Officer Reynolds noted that the woman who found the baby, being a church employee, would temporarily keep the child until everything was sorted out. And it never got sorted? Marcus shook his head. Apparently the case fell into some bureaucratic void. No documents, no follow-up. Officially, this child doesn't exist in the system. Clara mentioned that. She said Lily has no official documents. Marcus leaned back, regarding Elijah with experienced eyes. That alone doesn't prove anything about the girl's identity. I know, but it's a start. The following week, Marcus brought more puzzle pieces. I reviewed the fire records. Some intriguing inconsistencies. He opened a file on his tablet. The mansion's security system was disabled 47 minutes before the first fire alarm went off. The official report blamed an electrical malfunction related to the gas leak. But you don't believe that. That system was state-of-the-art seen with multiple backups. The chance of a total failure is almost zero. Marcus paused. Also, I checked the security team's schedule for that night. Bill Harmon, who should have been monitoring the cameras, inexplicably took leave without a proper replacement. A chill ran down Elijah's spine. You're suggesting it was planned? I'm saying there are suspicious elements. Marcus looked him in the eye. There's more. The body found in Rosie's room. The initial report said the remains were consistent with a 5-year-old, but the detailed forensic exam indicates a significant margin of error due to the condition of the remains. Meaning? Meaning there was no absolute certainty it was Rosie. At the time, there was no reason to doubt, since it was found in her room. But theoretically, it could have been any small child. The implication was monstrous enough that Elijah had to take a moment to absorb it. You're saying someone might have placed another body there? Marcus hesitated. It's a remote possibility, but not impossible. In the days that followed, each new piece of information fueled Elijah's growing obsession. He spent sleepless nights connecting dots, forming theories. Who would benefit from abducting his daughter and faking her death? Why abandon the child afterward? And why, after 5 years, did Lily seem only 5.5 instead of 8? The answer to that last question came unexpectedly from a doctor consulted privately by Marcus. Children who experience severe trauma or extreme deprivation can show delayed development, explained the specialist in the notes Marcus handed Elijah. This includes stunted physical growth. It's not unusual for a child to appear significantly younger than her real age, especially if there was malnutrition in her early years. The final piece emerged when Marcus discovered suspicious bank transfers made by Cole Weber, Elijah's old associate, in the weeks leading up to the fire. Huge sums went to offshore accounts linked to known mercenaries. Cole? Elijah was stunned. We were like brothers. He took almost complete control of the company after you left, Marcus reminded him. And from what I found, he was practically bankrupt before the fire, due to disastrous personal investments. The picture was nearly complete now, though some gaps remained. With every visit to Clara's house, Elijah felt more torn. The joy of being near the child he believed was his daughter clashed with the agony of not being able to reveal the truth, of not fully knowing the truth. Until, on a rainy afternoon, much like the day they first met, Elijah decided it was time. Clara was alone when he arrived. Lily was spending the afternoon at a friend's place, a rare moment of normal childhood that Clara insisted on providing despite their hardships. "I thought you'd come later," she said, surprised as she opened the door. Elijah